Hello, and thank you for tuning in. You're watching Weekly News Highlights, where we recap some of the biggest stories of the week. I'm Song Yujin, filling in for Kim Dami. We had a major political development here in South Korea this week. President Yoon has now become the first sitting president in the country's history to face criminal charges. Now, what does this mean for the embattled leader in the days ahead? And here in Korea, the country enjoyed a 6-day-long holiday for Seollal, also known as the Korean Lunar New Year. Now, for those unfamiliar with this holiday, we have everything you need to know, from its history and customs to places worth visiting on your next holiday trip. And finally, there were two major airplane incidents this week in the world. In Korea, a passenger plane caught fire just before takeoff, while in the United States, a jet collided midair with a military helicopter. Here's what we know so far. We start on the domestic front this week. South Korean prosecutors have officially indicted President Yoon on insurrection charges following his failed attempt to declare martial law late last year. Then what led the prosecution to take this unprecedented step? Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young breaks this down for us.
President Yoon is set to stand trial, becoming the first sitting president in South Korea's history to be indicted under detention. Prosecutors on Sunday indicted President Yoon on charges of leading an insurrection through his brief imposition of martial law. The move came 54 days after the declaration of martial law and just 1 day before Yoon's detention period was set to end. The prosecution's special investigation team took over the case from the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials on Thursday, earlier than planned following Yoon's refusal to cooperate with the CIO. The prosecutors twice requested to extend Yoon's detention for further investigations, but the Seoul Central District Court rejected it. Although the court's decision prevented further investigations, such as questioning the president in person, the prosecution concluded that indicting him was appropriate after reviewing the evidence gathered so far. They also cited ongoing concerns about evidence tampering. Yoon also faced allegations of abuse of power, but those charges were dropped because under South Korean law, a sitting president has immunity from most criminal prosecutions except for charges related to insurrection or inciting foreign aggression. In response, Yoon's legal team condemned the indictment, saying the prosecution has committed a historic mistake. It expressed confidence that the truth will be uncovered in court and vowed to expose the illegalities in the investigation and the truth behind the insurrection accusations. Yoon will be held in custody for up to 6 months in the first trial and up to 8 months each for the second and third trials. The prosecution claims they can prove guilt without further investigations, but with President Yoon's side denying the insurrection charges and claiming the investigation was illegal, intense courtroom battles are expected. As the unprecedented investigation of a sitting president ended abruptly with numerous challenges, this hints that controversies are expected to continue throughout the trial. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Now, with this indictment, President Yoon faces 2 trials, a criminal trial for insurrection and an impeachment trial at the Constitutional Court, which is now halfway through its proceedings. Our Oh Soo-young has more on what will happen in the coming weeks.
The Constitutional Court will resume President Yoon impeachment trial after the Lunar New Year holiday, with more witnesses to testify. On Tuesday 2 p.m, the court will hold the 5th hearing of the trial, with a focus on questioning key witnesses requested by the National Assembly, which is arguing for Yoon's impeachment. Beginning at 2:30 p.m, 3 witnesses will each undergo 90 minutes of questioning. Lee Jin-woo, former commander of the Capital Defense Command, and Yoon, former chief of Military Counterintelligence Command, have both been arrested as key figures implicated in the execution of martial law. Lee reportedly received calls from President Yoon to drag out legislators from parliament to stop them from voting to lift martial law, while Ya was in charge of searching and seizing the National Election Commission. Former intelligence official Hong Jang-won will also testify. Hong has already said he received orders, including from the president, to totally round up and clean up political opponents. During the previous hearing, Yoon denied he gave such orders. Also, former Defense Minister Kim Yong-yeon testified the president meant for military members to be pulled out of the assembly, not the members of parliament. As justices cross-examine the witnesses and their conflicting testimonies, the panel can ask their own questions. Yoon is likely to attend every trial hearing and also question witnesses himself, as he did in the previous hearing.
With 4 hearings left till February 13th, the timing of the verdict still remains unclear. Observers say the ruling at the earliest could come by the end of February, but there's still a fair chance of delay due to legal and political factors at play.
Press Officer Chun Jae-yeon said Friday that the court has selected additional witnesses, which include Interior Minister Lee Sang-min and National Election Commission Secretary General Kim Yong-bin, requested by the National Assembly side. On Yoon's side, the court approved National Security Advisor Shin Won-sik, security expert Baek Jong-wook, who was involved in electoral operations, and Director of the National Intelligence Service Cho Tae-yong. The selection of witnesses indicates that the court will consider Yoon's argument that suspected election fraud in the general election last year served as a pretext for declaring martial law. The court is still considering further witness requests by the president's team. If it approves more, the trial could be extended. Justices could also postpone the hearings, considering the pace of Yoon's criminal trial. Still, the judicial panel has been clear that it's focused on holding speedy trial proceedings. Meanwhile, another highly anticipated ruling will be delivered on Monday on the eve of Yoon's 5th trial hearing. The court will rule on whether acting President Choi Sang-mok violated the constitution by appointing only 2 out of 3 justices recommended by the National Assembly. Chair had left out left-leaning candidate Ma Eun-yeok, raising the need for bipartisan consensus to move forward. If the court finds the omission unconstitutional, Chair would be under significant pressure to appoint him. This would mean the court will operate as a full panel of 9 justices, also increasing the chance of a 2/3 majority vote required to impeach the president. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And for those of us here in Korea, we were treated to a nice 6-day break as it was a Seollal, Korean Lunar New Year holiday. And as it's one of the 2 biggest holidays alongside Chuseok, commonly known as the Korean Thanksgiving, this is really the time of the year when millions are on the move to meet their loved ones or travel elsewhere. And for those traveling, taking the train is still a popular choice. Now, if you happen to pass through Seoul Station, there's a place nearby that you might want to check out. Take a look. If you've ever passed through Seoul Station, the busiest train hub in Korea, you might have noticed this building right next door. It's a station too, but not for trains. So the Culture Station Seoul 284 is the old Seoul Station building that opened in 1925. Now this area ended operations as a railway station in 2003, but it then reopened in 2011 as a space for exhibitions, performances, and workshops. Step inside and you'll travel through time. The rooms of the century-old station have become exhibition halls. Currently, Culture Station Seoul 284 is offering 2 cultural journeys. On the first floor, you can hop aboard Craft Journey all over the place, everywhere. This exhibition showcases 68 pieces by 29 artisans from across Korea using metal, ceramics, wood, textiles, bamboo, and straw.
It was fascinating to see traditional crafts interpreted in modern ways. I used to take trains from this station as a kid, before the new one was built. It's so unique to experience exhibitions in a historical building like this, instead of a typical museum or gallery.
Upstairs, in what was once the Grill, Korea's first Western-style restaurant, you'll find the Enchanting Lines Dignified Waves exhibition. 4 hanbok brands have reimagined the traditional Korean dress, blending their unique styles while preserving its timeless elegance.
I was impressed by how the designers gave the hanbok a modern twist. This place feels so inviting with its rich culture and history. The exhibitions feel even more elegant and unique because the space still carries the charm of the old Seoul Station.
This former train station may no longer connect cities, but it's now a hub that connects people to culture and history with no ticket required. 송유진, Arirang News. And on Seollal Day, a lot of families come together to enjoy traditional Korean food and spend quality time with one another. And there is a tradition called Sebae, where people bow to their elders as a sign of respect and receive blessings, along with something that might just bring a little extra warmth to your wallet in return. Our Park Gon-woo walks us through what Sebae is.
Want to start the Lunar New Year with good fortune? One of the simplest ways to do that might be through a bow of fortune, known as Sebae in South Korea. During Seollal, the Lunar New Year holiday, one of the biggest holidays here, people perform Sebae to show respect to their elders. Wearing the traditional Korean attire hanbok, you stand up and place your left hand above the right if you're a male, and the right above the left if you're a female. Then you kneel and bow. So this is how you do it. 다 같이 새해 복 많이 받으세요.
더 씩씩하고 건강하고 멋진 친구들이 됐으면 좋겠어요.
Traditionally, after receiving elders' New Year's blessing, younger adults would be served food and alcohol, while children would receive New Year's money or sebae돈. But some experts say that the sebae traditions have slightly changed over time.
Sebae is simplifying in the fast-paced world, and along with the convenience of technology, it's sometimes done virtually. But the importance of empathy and communication through Sebae should remain. Emotions must be expressed to be understood. Maintaining the warmth of Sebae and continuing this tradition is essential for fostering meaningful connections.
Another change in the tradition is seen in the hanbok worn during Sebae.
Until a few decades ago, people would wear hanbok with great formality. But with changing tastes, especially among the younger generations, it has become more simplified and people wear it less frequently than before.
But he also said that it's still great to see more foreigners wearing hanbok, along with its growing popularity.
The hanbok is very beautiful and there are a lot of details. We watch a lot of K-dramas, so there are a lot of period dramas there, and we're very interested in K-pop, so we got exposed to knowing the hanbok.
The hanbok designer also shared his hope that as foreigners like wearing hanbok, more Koreans will too, and that the design can continue to maintain the essence of tradition rather than becoming disconnected from Korean culture. 박건우, Arirang News.
And Seollal wouldn't be Seollal without the rice cake soup tteokguk. This is not just a meal that fills your stomach. It warms the heart as well, especially when you understand the meaning behind enjoying the soup on Seollal Day. Our An Sung-jin explains the significance behind tteokguk and even how to make it.
Korean Lunar New Year, also known as Seollal, is one of the country's major holidays. Traditionally, Koreans would gather together, play folk games, and perform ancestral rites. And when Koreans think of Seollal, there's one thing that comes to their mind.
떡국이요. 왜냐면은 떡국 먹으면 나이도 먹을 수 있어요.
설날하면은 가족들이 다 같이 모여서 먹는 떡국이 생각납니다.
설날하면은 떡국이 제일 대표적인 음식이 아닐까요?
Then what is tteokguk that everyone is talking about? Tteokguk, which literally combines the word tteok, rice cake, and guk, soup, is a typical traditional dish eaten during the Lunar New Year holiday. The owners of this rice cake mill have been making their own tteok for more than 50 years. It's especially during these holidays that orders for garetteok, a long strip of rice cake dough, and the main ingredient in the tteokguk surges. First, rice, which has been soaked, is ground twice to soften it before it is steamed. After that, it's all mashed together to create long strips of garetteok. The long strip represents people's desires to have good fortune. Once the rice cake hardens for a day or two, it is then cut into oval pieces that resemble the shape of coins once used in Korea, the yeopjeon. The exact origin of eating tteokguk on Lunar New Year's Day is unclear, but it is believed to give good luck for the year. A traditional saying even goes that you haven't become a year older until you've had a bowl of tteokguk. Eating tteokguk during Seollal still remains a tradition, even if buying handmade tteok to make your own tteokguk is becoming less common.
For us, it's mostly regular customers that have been coming for a long time. Not a lot of new customers because it's not common to eat this much tteok. People now normally just buy small packages.
Tteokguk is not only a symbolic dish of Korea's Lunar New Year, but it also provides a glimpse into the hidden meanings behind the ingredients. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And exactly 1 month after the deadly Jeju Air Flight 2216 crash, a passenger plane operated by South Korean low-cost carrier Air Busan caught fire on the runway at Gimhae International Airport near the southeast city of Busan on Tuesday night while preparing for takeoff. All 169 passengers and 7 crew members on board the Airbus A321-200 were safely evacuated using emergency slides, though 7 sustained minor injuries. The fire reportedly started at the rear of the aircraft around 10:15 p.m. And according to the National Fire Agency, it was completely extinguished by 11:31 p.m., about an hour after firefighters arrived at the scene. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, which launched an investigation to determine the cause of the incident, confirmed on Wednesday that neither the plane's wings nor its engines were damaged. Now, this indicates that a fuselage issue did not cause the fire. Passengers say they saw smoke and flames emerging from an overhead bin at the rear of the aircraft, with some speculating that a battery pack or another electric device may have been the source.
We were sitting right under the overhead bin where the fire broke out. At first, we tried to open it to put out the fire, but the flight attendant told us not to.
Smoke kept rolling from the middle toward the front, and there were loud popping sounds. Inside the plane was covered in thick smoke.
The Transport Ministry is conducting a joint investigation into the fire in collaboration with the Fire Department, Police, the National Forensic Service, and the French Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety. Under the International Civil Aviation Organization regulations, the country that designed and manufactured the aircraft must participate in the accident investigation. Since Airbus is headquartered in France, they're involved in the process. And over in the U.S., a collision between a military helicopter and a passenger plane carrying 64 people in Washington, D.C. killed all 67 people on board both aircrafts. Now, this was the deadliest aviation accident in the U.S. since 2001. Our Shin Ha-young reports.
Rescue efforts went on through the night, but no survivors were found from the deadly collision of an American Airlines aircraft and the Army helicopter. Early on Thursday morning, U.S. authorities announced that 28 bodies had been recovered and believe all 67 people on board died.
Despite all those efforts, we are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident.
CBS News reported that at least 40 bodies had been recovered by 5:30 p.m. Thursday Eastern Time. A U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter on a training flight collided with American Airlines Flight 5342 on Wednesday night local time while approaching Ronald Reagan National Airport near Washington, D.C., sending the two aircraft plummeting into the Potomac River, the deadliest U.S. air crash since 2001. The jet had departed from Wichita, Kansas, with 60 passengers and 4 crew members, while the helicopter had 3 military personnel on board. According to AP, less than 30 seconds before the crash, an air traffic controller asked the helicopter if it had the arriving plane in sight. According to CBS News, figure skating athletes and their coaches were on board the plane. Among them, teenage figure skater Gina Han and her mother are believed to be of Korean descent. Spencer Lane, another teenage athlete who was adopted from Korea, was also on the plane with his American mother. They were returning home from the National Development Camp, which was held in connection with the recent U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Wichita.
Spencer Lane, he's one of my best friends. I mean, every single day I would walk into that locker room here and greet him, and he would tell me about his day and everything. And Gina, she would sit and put her skates on in the hallway, but when I would walk down that hallway, I would greet her every morning, and she was so kind to me.
U.S. President Donald Trump shared his condolences and paid tribute to the victims and families ahead of a press conference. But he then criticized the previous administration, indicating that its diversity, equity, and inclusion program for air traffic controllers at the Federal Aviation Administration were partially to blame for the crash.
And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told reporters there appeared to have been an elevation issue with the helicopter and said Army investigators were on the ground looking into the matter. Meanwhile, South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol expressed deep sorrow over the plane crash. The South Korean government is working to obtain a passenger list, though it is still unclear if any Korean nationals were on board. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Staying in the U.S., this week marked week 2 of President Donald Trump's second term in office. And during his first week, President Trump referred to North Korea as a, quote, nuclear power, which really raised concerns what this could signal a shift in Washington's long-standing policy of denuclearizing the regime. However, the White House this week said that President Trump remains committed to that policy. Our Lee Soo-jin has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump could once again pursue the complete denuclearization of North Korea. White House National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes told Yonhap News Agency on Tuesday local time that Trump will pursue the complete denuclearization of North Korea, as he did during his first term. The spokesperson also emphasized that Trump had a good relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and that his mix of toughness and diplomacy led to the first ever leader-level commitment to complete denuclearization. This comes shortly after the North state-run Korean Central News Agency revealed that Kim had conducted an on-site visit to a nuclear material production facility and a nuclear weapons research institute. During the visit, he inspected the current state of nuclear material production and assessed the institute's research agenda for 2025. The exact date of the visit, however, was not disclosed. Kim also reportedly said during the visit that a prolonged confrontation with the world's most hostile adversaries is inevitable and emphasized that strengthening of the nuclear shield is essential to address current threats and emerging security risks, as well as to protect the nation's sovereignty, interests, and right to development. And as this report comes less than a week after Trump in an interview with Fox News expressed his willingness to reach out to Kim again, it's likely that the North will refuse to engage in talks for the time being. During his first term, Trump held 3 historic meetings with Kim. It was after the Singapore summit in June 2018, the first ever meeting between a sitting U.S. president and a North Korean leader, that a joint statement was made saying the North would commit to working towards the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But while groundbreaking, the summit, as well as the following Hanoi summit in February 2019 and the DMZ meeting in June 2019, failed to result in a definitive agreement on denuclearization. As such, there has been speculation that Trump may pursue small deals that address only parts of North Korea's nuclear capabilities.
Well, I think the problem with a large deal is that Kim rejected that even back in 2019. So he's not going to try and cross that path again. It's going to likely be Trump leveraging Kim.
But as the White House's statement appears to refute these speculations, Trump may make the denuclearization of North Korea a key diplomatic goal in his second term as well. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
And continuing our coverage of the Trump 2.0, confirmation hearings for President Trump's cabinet nominees continued this week on Capitol Hill. And among them was his pick to lead the Commerce Department, financier Howard Lutnick. Tariff subsidies and artificial intelligence were key topics during the hearing, raising concerns among America's trade partners and allies, which included South Korea. Our economics correspondent Moon Hae-ryun has the key takeaways from the questioning.
President Trump's nominee to lead the Commerce Department, Howard Lutnick, backed Trump's plans to impose tariffs and stated that American allies, including South Korea, have exploited the United States in trade. During his Senate confirmation hearing on Wednesday, Lutnick claimed that Washington will need to work closely with allies such as Tokyo and Seoul in order to push foreign companies toward U.S.-based manufacturing. These remarks came in response to a question that asked about his plans to promote joint investments with allies to stimulate growth in the U.S. Lutnick made clear that tariffs would serve as a tool to encourage domestic manufacturing and emphasized that while tariffs on China should be the highest, allies should not expect any exceptions.
We need to be treated better. We need to be treated with respect, and we can use tariffs to create reciprocity, fairness, and respect.
He also addressed Trump's recent announcement of a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada, scheduled to take effect at the start of next month, clarifying that these tariffs are separate from general trade tariffs. He explained that these specific tariffs aim to curb illegal immigration and fentanyl trafficking and would not be implemented if both countries cooperate on these issues. As for general trade tariffs, he revealed his preference for across-the-board tariffs by country, suggesting that he favors tariffs applied across all goods rather than specific goods categories.
Lutnick expressed skepticism about subsidies provided under the Biden administration through the CHIPS and Science Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, raising concerns about how South Korean firms investing in the U.S. might be negatively affected. Tech giants Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix have made significant investments in the U.S. based on these incentives, but Lutnick stated that even if contracts under the CHIPS Act were finalized under the Biden administration, they would need to be reviewed. He also opposed a tax credit for leased electric vehicles, a provision under the IRA that has benefited South Korean auto companies such as Hyundai Motor. The hearing also addressed growing concerns over China's advances in artificial intelligence, including the recent breakthroughs by DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company. Lutnick advocated for stringent export controls and tariffs to curb China's technological rise and accused DeepSeek of stealing intellectual property from the U.S. 문혜련, Arirang News.
And there was also good news in the world of K-pop, with Blackpink's Rosé breaking her own record as the highest charting K-pop female artist ever on the Billboard charts. Billboard announced on Monday local time that Rosé's hit song with Bruno Mars, APT, climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 14 weeks after its release in October last year. Now, with this achievement, she has shattered her previous record of number 5, which had been the highest charting position ever achieved by a female K-pop artist. And APT has also made history as the first K-pop track to reach number 1 on Billboard's Pop Airplay chart, which ranks the week's most popular songs based on radio airplay. And on the entertainment front, Netflix announced on Thursday that it will release the 3rd season of Squid Game on June 27th. Calling it the final season, Netflix released teasers. The 3rd season was filmed consecutively with season 2, which consisted of just 7 episodes. The final season will be released just 6 months after the release of the 2nd, while the 2nd season was screened over 3 years after the 1st. The streaming giant said earlier this month that season 2 will be one of the most watched original series seasons, with the number of views in the 4th quarter of last year standing at 165.7 million. And that's all for this edition of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching. And on behalf of us here at Arirang News, hope you have a warm and safe rest of the weekend.